And I would now like to introduce our doctoral guest speaker, who is joining us from Botswana. Emmanuel, I hope you've got signal now. We are introducing today Mr. Gabapelo Emmanuel Phillip, who prefers to be called Emmanuel, I am told. However, I'm using your full name at the moment. And Emmanuel is doing his doctorate he's doing an exploratory study on the deployment of knowledge management in Botswana's telecommunications sector, and he's coming from an Industry 4.0 perspective. Just reminding you that the purpose of introducing our doctoral students is that they're going to present aspects of their topic to you, but they are in a stage where they still would like feedback and input, so please do ask questions and push Gabapelo around this. And so I would like to say that we've got all the marketing experts in the house today, because Emmanuel is certainly someone who is, besides being a marketing practitioner with the Marketing Association, he is also based at the Botswana Accountancy College, where he is currently lecturing in the School of Business, and he's worked at various universities. But the thing for me that fascinates me about him is the fact that his passion for knowledge and this whole intersection with technology, which, Patrick, you were speaking very much to, and the importance of it, is his underlying philosophy for knowledge-based decision-making. I think that, Emmanuel, you are a true marketer in terms of a Da Vincian, because you look at the management of technology, the management of innovation, the management of people, really systemically, because you don't only see marketing as a very face-forward kind of approach, but rather that you integrate. And I'm looking really forward to hearing you speak. But it also fascinates me that not only are you a marketing practitioner and a contributor to society in your field, but the fact that you give back through teaching is truly a gift. And I think it's amazing that you continue to do that as an academic and as somebody here today who's going to be presenting your doctoral thoughts to us. And I truly do wish you the very best of luck in your journey. And exploratory study is always interesting, but I'm really fascinated to hear about how you think that the deployment of knowledge management can work in the sector that you are focusing on. And we look forward to hearing your thoughts and ideas. And thank you for joining us. And we hope your signal is now better. And we wish you well to present. Thank you very much.
Allow me, first of all, before I get into the thick of things, Dr. Mala, to recognize my supervisor. I think I just saw him walking, just come in while I was still here. That is Professor Chigada. He has been so wonderful to me.
Professor Chigada. Sorry, I didn't see Prof. Chigada there. Welcome, Prof.
Thank you.
I just saw him just went in. I think I felt I need to recognize him, first of all, before getting to the presentation, for the guidance that he has given to me so far. It has been so far a wonderful journey. We met he was introduced to me last week. Now, just close to a year, we have been working together on this. Ladies and gentlemen, my topic has been introduced to you is it goes developing a knowledge management framework in Botswana's telecommunications sector and Industry 4.0 perspective. Developing a knowledge management framework for Botswana telecommunications sector and Industry 4.0 perspective. So as we all know by now, the global economy has undergone massive disruptions as the world grapples with the realities of the Industry 4.0, usually in various literatures labeled as one of the fastest period of innovation in the history of humankind. So what we are trying to do here, if you were to sort of refer and to try to consult various literature, you may find or realize that Botswana has not been doing well in those two areas, in the area of knowledge management, and in the particularly also, as is the case with most nations, they speak about the knowledge-based economy, but one seems, when one gets to begin to appreciate what is there on the ground, that actually will take this country through into realizing the objectives of the knowledge-based economy, you realize that there is not enough in terms of, not sufficient enough in terms of what the country wants to do. So The industry 4.0 characterized by the merging physical, digital, and biological realms in profound ways like artificial intelligence. So in that case, up to now, we need to also bring in the benefits of knowledgement as we have come to know them. That with a proper knowledgement program or structure in place, an organization wishes to ensure that it improves the ability to make informed decisions through access to reliable and accurate information, to be able to adapt to the use of emerging technologies and to evolve and to meet the changing business requirements and to be able to survive in this highly digital and disruptive changes such as staff turnover and stuff like that. So one of the things that perhaps motivated my choice of this topic is the reality that I had a tenure in the telecommunications industry, which took me for about 5 or 6 years while I worked for one of the leading telecommunication businesses or companies here in Botswana. That was before I joined the world of academics and becoming a lecturer. So to some degree, the telecommunications nature, the technologies, as well as the amount of information that is being generated in that sector happens to be huge. And the interest during my time and my tenure in that sector, one would be realize there are some glaring gaps. You'd allow me to maybe perhaps to share a little bit about the problem statement, what in fact motivated this. So, as I indicated in the beginning, there seems not to be enough in terms of what is happening in the area of knowledge management in Botswana. Of course, the technology is always there, or one believes that the right technologies are there. But however, in terms of what has to be put, what maybe and how they wish to bring about to harness the proper use of knowledge in that case is still not to be enough. So by now, as we know, knowledge management plays a very strategic role to competitive advantage. The business criticality of knowledge management is considered in most industries and organizations, where processes are increasingly made redundant because of the physical and cognitive ability of machines in performing both repetitive and highly complex work. So in that case, the specific problem being addressed by the study is the lack of the knowledge management framework, coupled by the incoherence to the practice of knowledge management, is what in fact has motivated and what constitutes study. There is insignificant or lack of knowledge management practice, contributing generally to the inability by service providers in the sector to adopt a knowledge-driven culture of decision making, despite the opportunities presented by the Industry 4.0 capabilities. However, this results in a weakened competitive advantage by most of the organizations within the sector. Perhaps one question which begs for answers is could it be the case of the service providers in Botswana not being aware of the value of knowledge management? Or could it be that they do not have the understanding of the necessary blueprint required to establish a functional knowledge management program? So those basically are, or happens to be what otherwise I would refer to as a problem statement, because up to now we all have to, the literature indicates that the hallmark of every organization's success is to have an efficient roadmap and to unlock the knowledge and organizational capabilities to be able to communicate the real competitive advantage. And therefore, that's enabling organizations efficiently connect knowledge in distinctive ways to provide the added knowledge. So in short, that is what motivated this topic and what I therefore present to you as the key or the problem statement for this study. Why am I interested in the study and what has piqued my interest? By so saying, I would like maybe to touch a little bit on the issue of the ontology I have always been otherwise what I regard myself as a student of life. I think just from the introduction, you realize that I've got a background in marketing as well as business management. It was I got to know of the area knowledge management in the later stages of my life, both professionally and personally, as I decided on now to say I've been very much into marketing. Perhaps maybe one needs a different maybe field altogether in the quest to try to learn new other things. So up to now, ontology is the study of being or the nature of reality. So to be able to extract value from the organizational knowledge, there needs to be practical and systematic approach implemented to identify and to capture and to support the visibility of the critical knowledge assets. Therefore, the fact that there is very little study in the telecommunications industry in general is clearly defines or addresses knowledge management, particularly in the context of knowledge management in the context of Industry 4.0, is what in fact motivated this study. Because knowledge management, as we know, it involves every field of business. And the fact that there are very few knowledge management studies in Botswana, and the available ones are those which are narrowly scoped and are usually do not zoom much into the area of knowledge management and what would work for Botswana, is what motivates or motivated this the choice of this topic. So this is an empirical study in the context of a developing phenomenon, which is Industry 4.0, and conducted in a developing country, which is Botswana. Well, the fact that organizations have come under increasing pressure to embrace 4.0, Industry 4.0, this study seeks to develop a holistic and integrative understanding of knowledge management, a feature which demands broadening the scope and interest towards establishing core principles that knowledge must be valued and managed as a critical asset within the organization in the same vein as other physical assets. So that gives or has motivated the choice of this field of study, as I've indicated before. And in terms of the epistemology looks at describing or looking at to describe the relationship of the researcher to being or with what is being researched. Epistemology defined is the way of understanding and explaining how we know and what we know. Of course, there are quite a range of other epistemological views as outlined in various sources like the Crotty in 1998 and Bryman 2008 in that way. So the positivism or objectivism or interpretivism were considered with the researcher ending the discussion by indicating that, of course, pragmatic approach was the one which the researcher believed that it's suitable for this study, as it allowed the researcher to be able to be detached from the participants, while the researcher is immersed with the participation or the participants during the face-to-face interviews and also during the industry-wide quantitative study through the use of the questionnaires. So the pragmatism will be or has been chosen as the to guide the epistemology of this study. Because epistemologically, the pragmatists, they view knowledge as a product of inquiry. Of course, that is the concept has been made popular by Davy when he viewed or the inquiry as a step-by-step problem-solving strategy, which begins with the identification of the problem. So this study has sought to adopt or seeks to adopt a commensurate pragmatic research approach, which is a mixed method research, is the one which will be applied. First of all, being a two-phase study, it seeks to adopt a qualitative study involving a select few group of experts through a qualitative study in the first phase of this research, and the idea being to feed into the main quantitative or the industry-wide quantitative study, which will come immediately after the conclusion of the qualitative. The reason for employing the mixed method study also is to assist the study in enhancing the validity, the reliability, and the trustworthiness of findings. Pragmatism also will help the researcher to understand the research process very well. This being an exploratory sequential mixed method helps the researcher to explore the findings related to the critical knowledge and to validate the development of the knowledge management framework. As I've indicated from the beginning, there seems to be a lack, a minimal to no research. Only few studies, maybe in the context of Botswana as a country, and particularly, and most particularly from the telecommunications sector. Therefore, the reason why the study it about a group of 12 experts will be able to validate the model or the conceptual model right from the beginning, so that now at the end of the day, after the model has been validated, an industry-wide study can be rolled out. The research strategy for this study, as identified, Ngulube defined the research strategy as a research guide for the researcher during data gathering, analysis, interpretations, whilst giving meaning to raw facts. The research studies adopted for this in this study is after maybe having a consideration of the various types of research strategies, is the case study research methods, which is usually seen as an empirical inquiry which seeks to investigate a contemporary phenomenon within its real life context, when the boundaries between phenomenon and the context are not clearly evident. To say the two key phenomenons being knowledge management in the context of Industry 4.0, as much as in other parts of the world and maybe next to home in South Africa, this being issues which are being debated every day. There seems to be a slow movement in terms of how they both research itself as well as practice, they look at these areas. And hence, that is why the excitement coming out of this or coming out to choose this topic as the case topic of study. So a case study research, it will enable the researcher to closely examine the data within a specific context, to maintain and to be able to support the mixed method itself. Hence, therefore, this is being seen as the appropriate research strategy for this study. What are the research questions and the sub-questions in the study? Perhaps maybe one has to start looking at the research objectives. The idea will be to examine the extent to which service providers or telecommunication service providers have adopted knowledge management as practice for creating and sharing knowledge in Botswana telecommunications industry. It also seeks to explore how the successful deployment of knowledge management can enhance decision-making capabilities of organizations in Botswana telecommunications sector. It will also seek to identify the antecedents or the factors and knowledge management capabilities of a knowledge management environment which is ready to face the challenges of Industry 4.0. It also seeks to analyze the perceived impact of organizational culture in supporting the adoption of knowledge management by service providers in Botswana's telecommunications industry. The study further seeks to develop a knowledge management framework for Botswana's telecommunications industry, a structured method of deployment by taking into cognizance the digitalization aspects of Industry 4.0. The output of this study is to develop a knowledge management framework as it has been outlined right in the topic, in the research topic. The research questions, the study looks to address to what extent has service providers adopted knowledge management as a practice for creating and sharing knowledge in Botswana's telecommunications sector. and how can the successful deployment of knowledge management enhance decision-making capabilities? 3, what are the antecedents and knowledge management capabilities of a knowledge management environment which is ready to face the challenge of Industry 4.0? And how can the perceived impact of organizational culture by service providers in Botswana's telecommunications industry? Dr. Manga, I'll be relying on you perhaps maybe to update for me as we go on to check on the time, because of great importance for me will be before the end of the study or before the end of this presentation to touch a little bit on the issues of frameworks to be adopted or to be used in this particular study. Because according to me and how we look at it, that's where perhaps maybe we would need much of your feedback in terms of what we are doing. So as we have, I have indicated right in the beginning, the idea here is first of all to develop a conceptual model which will be validated by a group of maybe 10 people, experts in the telecommunication industry, to validate this model. So this study has adopted 3 theories to be used in the development of the conceptual framework. The first group of attributes have been drawn from the knowledge management success model as made popular by Genex and Olfman of 2006. The second group of factors would be adopted from diffusion of innovation theory, quite a popular theory as we know it, and also the systems theory will be used in the development of other factors, which will be used in the development of the conceptual model. The system theory, as we know it, we have got the Vinci TIPS business leadership framework, and according to in consultation with various literature, one realizes that the TIPS model, it resonates well and very well with the principles of TIPS. So those three models will be used in the development of the conceptual model, which will be validated before an industry-wide study is being conducted. So as indicated, each model has got a group of factors which will be used. For example, the knowledge management framework has got a set of factors. It draws from 3 theories or theoretical frameworks which seeks to develop the model and for it to be for adoption. Under the division of innovation theory, we are looking at relative advantage or knowledge management relative advantage. We look at the knowledge system compatibility. We look at the system complexity. We look at the system trialability and the observation. And most importantly, still on the theoretical frameworks, we wish to look at or to draw from the digitalization aspects of the Industry 4.0, which will be informed mainly by the system theories itself. So in short, that's how definitely we sought to develop and to look at or to address our study up to this far. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Manuel. Are there any specific questions? I see Mark Fuller, you've made a comment. I agree with completely that it will be very interesting to see the discussion, the way that you link it to tips, Emmanuel. And then I just want to give one comment from my side, and then if anyone else has questions. We often see with students that they refer to something as a model, a conceptual model, when actually it's a conceptual framework. So just remember that if you're going to test it and you're going to really engage in terms of actually implementing it, then it's often referred to as a model. But if you're not planning to implement it and rather you're planning to, generalize, give trends, etc., I would just recommend that you consider calling it a framework, a conceptual framework instead of a conceptual model. I see Prof. Singh has a question for you. Prof. Singh.
Thank you very much, Marlo. I've got a comment and a question. So my comment first to Emmanuel is, I've heard him speak about a mixed method study, which I think it's fine. However, he's speaking about 2 phases to the study. This is a common mistake most students make when they do a mixed method study, particularly at doctoral level. It is that 2 phases is only about the data gathering process. However, the 3rd phase is very important, and that is the mixing of the data. How you integrate the data to triangulate the information is very important. So at this level, that's the comment I want to make, that ensure that you pay attention to that 3rd phase as well. So my question to you is, in listening to your objectives and your research questions, I'm coming across the word impact. Now, you've got to be very careful here, because if you're doing an impact study, you can't gather data at one moment in time and call it an impact study. You've got to get baseline data first, then you've got to get a midterm gathering of data, and then probably a later or an end of term. So at least 3 different data sets to compare before you can say you had a positive impact or a negative impact on any phenomenon. So just to see how you see that, because it has an impact on your time. I don't know how long you're planning to do this study. So I'm not saying it's not possible to do an impact study, but that's where I want to hear from you. Is this what you're trying to do?
The point is noted, Doc. We would have to go back and to try to maybe to make a little bit tweak of the word there to find out the relevant one which you can use. Because as Dr. Mala was indicating, I'm not so sure if Dr. Mala, the idea will be to, first of all, to develop that conceptual framework, which may be perhaps in view of the fact that between the development of the model and one time when one has to finish, there might be not enough time maybe to look at the impact that model would have, or that framework would have. Perhaps maybe we might need to look at that, and your point is noted, Prof.
Anyone else with questions? So Emmanuel, the point, Franzel, do you want to speak? Dr. du Plessis?
Thank you, Dr. Kernan. So for me, I'm just always intrigued when people use words like the extent that something is going to influence something else, or the impact that one thing is going to have on another. And my question, you don't have to unpack it here necessarily right now, because we are mindful of the time. But what do you mean? How do you conceptualize extent? So what do you mean by extent, and what do you mean by impact? Because those are very difficult words to use, and it's not always easy to explain what exactly you mean by extent and what exactly you mean by impact. Thank you.
So I think that Prof. Singh, Gibson, I'll come to you now. I think that Prof. Singh's point, as well as Dr. du Plessis, is similar in terms of be very mindful of the words that you use, because in research, especially when they form part of your topic, or they form part of your title, they form part of your questions, you are going to be called to account on those. Gibson, if I could just ask Letta to present for us, and then I will come back to you if you don't mind. And I will come back to you, but I would like to give Letta the opportunity to just show us what she's graphically represented of our time today. And then Gibson, please keep your question for afterwards. Thanks, Letta.
Thank you, Dr. Kernan. So this is the visual summary that I've created as we've been going through the Curiosita session. You can see that on the screen. Dr. Kernan spoke to us about Soweto Creamery, and I think really the impact for me was that innovation is sometimes combining things that already exist just in a different way. And she made the question, how are you getting involved? How are we getting involved as consumers and as entrepreneurs? And then Patrick took us through entrepreneurship and making a difference in South Africa. He said that 5 out of 7 businesses fail, but the opportunity to thrive is there. One of the main points that came through for me is that advice and support from our mentors and our friends are so important. Businesses need support from the government, but we cannot necessarily rely on that. We should teach our kids and our students about entrepreneurship. He said that managing people, especially as an entrepreneur, is an extreme sport, and I agree with that. Don't give up. We need to plan ahead. We need to practice. It's about the journey, and we need to be resilient. Follow your passion and your purpose. It's not necessarily just all about the money. Focus on putting together structures and processes to scale for growth. Rigor is important, being attuned to people, and that flexibility comes through time and time again as a critical capability for entrepreneurs. Going to the left, entrepreneurship is sacrifice. That networking is critical because people only buy from others that they trust. Patrick told us about lots of hard work. That's part of his DNA, and being asked, do you want to go out to party? And I say, no, I have to work. Putting in that work and that effort is absolutely critical. Again, surrounding ourselves with teachers and mentors that can help us. And then he also made the point around corporates having a role to play to teach and support, giving entrepreneurs the opportunity to show what they can do. I hope that, there we go. Investing in the brand came through very, very clearly. Writing opinion pieces, establishing yourself as a thought leader, that will lead to more exposure. And then finally, the takeaway is flexibility, agility. Don't get stuck in what you know. Try something new. We have to grow the cake and work on creating that equality. And then Emmanuel took us through his doctoral methodology, developing a knowledge management framework in Botswana Telecoms with an Industry 4.0 approach. He said that we have to have a proper structure in place so that we can make better decisions and evolve in the digital world. We need to unlock the knowledge. We need to unlock the capability. And really what stood out for me there was knowledge must be managed and valued. It is an asset. He spoke about it being a competitive advantage. The technology is out there, but we have to harness the management of the knowledge around there. We need to adopt a knowledge-based culture and approach to decision-making. He spoke about his research and his gathering methods. You can read that through the three models: the knowledge management success model, diffusion of innovation technology, and then systems theory and the TIPS model. And then consider what is the rest of the world doing, and how have suppliers adopted knowledge management as an approach as well. So this very quickly in 4 minutes was the visual summary that we have for today's Curiosita. Dr. Kunen, back over to you.
Thank you so much, Letta. As I'm sure you can agree, Letta's work is absolutely magnificent. Letta, thank you very much. We will distribute Letta's discussion as well. Gibson?
Thank you very much. I just want to highlight just something quickly in the interest of time. I had a look at the topic in its current form. Exploratory study on development of knowledge management in Botswana telecom sector and industry 4.0 perspective. The topic, according to Newman, everything in the topic is important. I think something is missing there. Either in the topic itself, we can say, I don't know, maybe say development of knowledge management, because KM, knowledge management as a subject itself, is just too broad. So maybe narrowing it down to exactly this is what I want to do in this specific sector. Okay, because KM, knowledge management itself, involved example, I would say tacit knowledge, which is the knowledge in people, in the skull. Okay, sorry my language. And explicit knowledge that we exhibit like in the form of technology. Technology example is also a representation of knowledge. So maybe if Emmanuel could just narrow it down, because in the topic is to say exactly this is what I am going to do. Is it a knowledge management framework within, because you say Botswana again, I think Botswana Telecom is too big. I don't know. We might consider narrowing it down in the interest of a milestone in time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Gibson. And to everybody who did comment, thank you. I think, Emmanuel, I hope that it assisted you, for you and Prof. Jagada to chat through some of these things. You're also welcome. We do a video, so you will be welcome to get access to that as well. I want to thank both Patrick and Emmanuel today for your presentations. I want to thank you for engaging with us. It's always, challenging to actually put yourself out there, and you've really been amazing in terms of being very open to the comments. And please feel free if you want to join us or discuss with Prof. Harbia or Dr. Deploy Saliers or myself or any of the team involved in research at Vinci, Prof. Singh, please feel free to reach out to us as well. And we often do academic roundtables with supervisors and students if you wish to just get other perspectives. Absolutely. And to everyone else, thank you so much. I hope I will see some of you next month and some of you certainly, hopefully at the talk on the 24th about the budget speech. So have a wonderful evening further, and we will send out letters, notes, and thank you very much.